Hello, good evening. Welcome to our Unived Live. As mentioned last week, this week we're only doing one live show. Today we have a very special guest, somebody from South India.
Yeah.
But before we introduce him, how's everyone doing? How was your weekend? What goals do you have for this week? It's Monday, so a new week. I know that for us, unfortunately, the lockdown got extended for Mumbai, so we're still indoors. So we'll continue running on the treadmill. We're sort of looking forward to getting some fresh air and doing some runs on the road, but unfortunately, we're still locked in.
Yep, we're still on the treadmill. They've said until May end, but it may just continue into June. So we're okay. We're mentally used to it now. Every day is a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It doesn't matter. It's all the same.
Yes.
But we'd love to know from you guys. How are you guys doing? How are you holding up? I'm sure there's a lot of people from Cochin. Are things open? Are you running on the road? Are you still training at home? Let us know. And without further ado, let me give you a short bio on Ramesh and then bring him in. All right. By profession, Ramesh is your everyday Indian, working in software and deciding to pick up running in his early 30s. By performance, however, he's clearly a barefoot apart. Since his first run, Ramesh has run 78 full marathons across 2 decades. He's been running barefoot for the past 10 years and has clocked 23,000 kilometers without shoes. He's run in India, Singapore, Bangkok, Dubai, Berlin, the US, Canada, and has qualified for Boston 6 times. Ramesh is the founder of the Soles of Cochin. And, if he isn't running a race, he's busy organizing either the Spice Coast Marathon or the Vagamon Ultra Trail. Let's get Ramesh in. Hey there.
Yeah, hello. Hi. How are you guys?
Good. Good. How are you?
Hope you guys are very good. So your lockdown is extended, of course. Lockdown is extended all over the country, but I guess more opportunities for us to experiment with our cooking, I guess. So.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a banana bread in the oven as we speak. So we're waiting for that tonight.
I'm fortunate that. Sorry, what was that?
No, I was going to ask if there was going to be a live demo of that.
A live demo? Maybe it may be done before we're done.
We're done. Yeah, it will be done before the session's over.
So we'll bring it out. Good one. We'll bring it out before we sign out for the day. But
that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. It's nice to see a map of India in the background. We've sort of forgotten what the geography and everything looks like because we're just confined to being indoors. How are you taking it? How are things at your end? Are you able to get a little bit of fresh air in the morning or late evening, or are you just home?
Yeah, off late actually in Kerala, there's been a slight bit of relaxation, I should say, in the rules. So we can get out, provided we wear a mask, face mask. We can get out and do our exercise. And as of yesterday, it was extended until yesterday. It was only up till 7 a.m. Now it can be up to 8. So we can run, we can walk, we can cycle. All of that can be done till 8 a.m. in the morning outside, provided you wear a mask. So yeah, it's been a new learning for most of us. How to run in a mask and how that changes your physiological stature, I guess, because it does have a severe impact on your breathing and your workout itself, your effort level. So I guess generally speaking, we are hoping that we'll all come out to be better runners as we get used to this masked running for
running.
Time, so.
Are you doing? Are you going out in the mornings and then getting your runs in?
Yeah, I've been doing that for the last week or so, a week and a half. Until then, I was running within my apartment, compound.
Yeah.
So it was just in the within the compound. But now, yeah, been a week and a half. Most of us have been getting out, not as groups, obviously. I mean, as individual,
Correct.
runners. So,
That's nice.
So I'm sorry, but you guys are not doing that in Mumbai?
No, not at all. Not at all.
No.
I tried running on the road during week 1 of the lockdown, and I was stopped a couple of times by the cops. Since then, I haven't gone out. We have a treadmill. We actually got a treadmill once the lockdown started. So we somehow managed to sort of get a tempo and get it in when no one was looking. Yeah, so we're running on the treadmill. I do know a few people who've been trying to venture out in the mornings. And it's like a cat and mouse game. Some days they're stopped by the cops and they're sent home, and other days they don't see the cops, so they manage a 30-40 minute run and go home.
Is there a lot of surveillance that happens with you guys? Are cops going around and making sure that people are wearing masks?
Yeah, they do in places that are generally crowded. They do that. There are sort of like center of the city where there are these parks where people come a lot to walk, mostly walkers. So yeah, there are some surveillances that happen there, but generally where I run, it is a little in the outskirts of the city, so we don't have that much of a surveillance like that. But yeah, it's
how times have changed.
You bet, and it's gonna be changed for a while. It seems like.
Yeah. But talking about change, you've been running for 2 decades. How have things changed for you? From how was the scene, back in the day when you started? A couple of, I think a week ago, we were speaking with Coach Dan Baz from Bombay.
Right.
He's also Zico, yeah. And he was telling us the first race he ran had 27 participants in the full marathon and 8 ambulances. And I was like, that's a dream today to get into a race, which is a competitive race, and have only 25 or 30 runners and have the rest of the road to yourself. So can you just take us through how things were when you got into the scene, and how you've seen it change and develop?
Yeah, well, I picked up running and primarily racing when I was in the US. So that was, the scene was obviously a little different there from India. But then I came back. I moved back to India in 2007. So most of my running has been here since then. So I ran the Mumbai Marathon in 2008, and it was similar to what you said. I mean, there was probably no more than maybe 100 people running the full marathon back then, maybe not even that much. It was a very interesting experience after coming from the US. Straight away coming from the US, running a few marathons there, and running. I mean, I knew it's not a sport in India, that much marathon running, but so I had some sort of like expectations at certain levels. But what it was, pretty much at par with what I had expected it to be. And but in terms of the growth, I haven't seen in the US the running boom that happened in the 70s, and then again in the late 90s and into 2000s. I had missed that, right? I mean, I hadn't seen that much, but I was lucky enough to witness that running boom in India because it changed dramatically in the later years that I was here. So from 2007 when I ran, 2008 when I ran Mumbai, as I said, I mean, we probably had about 50 to less than 100 people running the full marathon. And when I finished, we went to a counter to get the medal, and the girl there was like, "Okay, so what did you run? Full, half, fun run, whatever." So I said I ran the full marathon. She threw a medal at me and said, "Okay, take it." So it was basically like, I could have gotten, anybody could have gotten any medal pretty much. So yeah, from that things have changed an awful lot to a whole different thing of like, we have Mumbai Marathon that's like that went through a metamorphosis of its own with gold label and whatnot with aims. So yeah, I mean that, and then all these races that sprang up all over the country within a span of maybe 3 years after that. I think in 2008 when I ran the Mumbai Marathon the first time, and then between then and the next time I ran it was in 2011, and it was a huge change, a sea of change between those 3 years, because both in the quality of Mumbai Marathon itself, quality of running in India, and quality of running or quality of the races in general all over the country. So yeah, so I don't know if that's an answer to you, but basically, yeah, I can give you an example of how different things were back in 2008 when I ran Mumbai. There was no, I don't think there was any spot where we got an energy drink. There was not a single aid station where we got an energy drink. I mean, thankfully, I had carried a few gels with me, and I, chugged in water and took those gels. And the second time I ran it, 2011 was definitely better, but they were not much. I mean, they didn't have enough, so they were sort of hiding them in the bag. So I would get to the aid station. I knew after about a couple of aid stations, I figured out they did have them, but they were sort of hiding them. So I asked them for it. Like I said, yeah, that thing that you're hiding in the bag, that's what I really want. So please give it to me. So yeah, it was that was how it was. But then from then and from that, things have changed an awful lot now. So for the better.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying you would go to the finish counter and ask the lady for a medal. Today, there's no breathing space at the finish counter. You have to find them there. So, wow. But you spoke about getting to experience the running boom in India. I would argue that you've been lucky and fortunate not to just experience it, but to be one of the catalysts of the running boom that all of us are experiencing. You, along with the core team at Soles of Cochin, of course, you've brought the sport out to people in Cochin. You've gotten a lot of people involved in the sport, and then setting up now 2 events, one on the road, one on the trail. So 2008, 2011, you mentioned 2 years Mumbai Marathon. When did you start, Soles of Cochin? What was the thought behind that?
Well, okay. So Soles of Cochin was started in 2013, but then I mean, some of the things that you mentioned about me being a catalyst and all, I think I'm I think you're giving me too much credit for something that I didn't really do, because I am more of an accidental catalyst, because from founding Soles of Cochin, if you call it that, I mean, I couldn't even take the credit for that. But the fact that it happened had really nothing to do with my, my vision or my goal to develop running or anything. Frankly, I mean, it was purely a selfish thing. Because what happened was in 2012, I mean, of course, I had friends, who came back actually around the same time as I did from abroad. They have been asking me, like, we should start a running group. And my friends were runners, obviously. They've been asking me to, join them and then have a running group. And I was like, no, it's not my cup of tea. I mean, I can participate. I can probably tell people what I do, and that's about it. And then I can gain experience from others. All that is true, but I wasn't too keen on getting into the organizing a running group and having people run with me or run with a group and all that stuff. Then as a reason for it, in a way, what happened was in 2012. As I was running, of course, we were all solo. So these guys who came back from the US or abroad, and others who we found here. We were all running solo, I mean, on our own. And I was running on my own, and I was, running near my home, and I got hit by a car, and I broke my leg. So, yeah, I was lying on the road wearing a singlet and a short shorts, barefoot. Um, so it was not easy for people to stop and not think that I was, some drunk lying on the road. So they did not. I mean, it took me a while to get somebody to actually, take me to the hospital. So that experience with my friend coming in and reminding me again that see, this is what we want to avoid, and this is one major reason why we need to have a group, because safety is a major factor. And that's something that I had not thought about at all, because it was, we all take it for granted that we, as long as we are healthy, we are all good, is what we think. But then accidents can happen anytime. So that was a good sign for me, because my friend Kumarji, as we call him, AP Kumar, he was really the catalyst, if you ask me, who sort of pushed me. And we all, we had this person coming from the US who stops by every now and then and gives us throws out a bunch of ideas on our heads and leaves. And we kind of abuse him after that for throwing all these ideas in our heads and leaving. But then he's the ultimate guy. His name is Matthew. He's the guy. I think Vijayan had mentioned it last time. He's a 74-year-old. Yeah, he's a 74-year-old young chap who runs 100-milers and stuff like that.
I believe he flagged off Vagabond this year.
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
He actually ran. Before. A few months before that, actually last September, I think, he ran across the state of Tennessee in the U.S. He lives in Houston, the U.S. So there was a run that was organized by the same race director as the one who does Barkley, the Barkley marathons. So he organizes this run across Tennessee, and Matthew had run that. So it took him. So it's about 515 kilometers or so, 320 plus miles, and he took about I think 7 days to do it, 7.5 days to do it. So yeah, I mean, it was so him, and then a few others locally who have been just running, sort of like starting to run. So we had about 6-7 people that we started the group with, and it was started with no fanfare. We just ran. We ran from one point in the city to the other. We had a biker friend, a cyclist friend of ours, take a few pictures, and then we just shared it on Facebook. So that was an idea that was planted on our heads by Rahul Varghese. You remember him, right? The guy from Running a Living.
Right.
Because we met him. I think I met him at Mumbai or one of the marathons, and we had barely started this idea of having a group. And that's when he said, this is what you do. All you do is just keep running and in groups and keep advertising it. Just tell people, just do it everywhere you can. And then thankfully, somebody from the Hindu newspaper saw it. I think in either in the Facebook group or somewhere where we were just shamelessly advertising ourselves, saw this, and she ran an article on the group saying, like, there's a running boom in the city, like 7 people running. So that was good, because that actually was a major milestone, I should say, for people to see it. And then we started getting people coming in with us, joining, just having of course, when Matthew, when he came back after a year, the first thing he said was, look, Ramesh, look what we have created. So because we had no idea, we had no expectation, we had nothing when we started it a year ago, and it became much bigger than what we had envisaged it to be. So yeah, it was an amazing journey.
Wow.
That's incredible. I mean, it's something that, like you said, it was sort of an accident that led to the formation of the group. And now it's, I know that whenever we run, for example, Malnad, we just see like Soles of Cochin everywhere. And I mean, the amount of people, and also I think the humbleness and that the group has is just something that is very contagious, and that's something that when I think about Soles of Cochin, that's what comes to my mind.
Yeah, I think my first memory was Javadu 2015 or 16.
First time?
Yeah, I think 2015.
Yeah.
That's the first time I ran Javadu, and that's the first time I saw bright yellow Soles of Cochin singlets and t-shirts up and down the trail, and I was just running, wondering, okay, what's this Soles of Cochin? You know, of course the spelling, and then of course I heard more and read more, and then I've seen you guys, Mumbai Marathon, Malnad, here, there, everywhere, and yeah, it's. But
yeah,
you know,
I think 2015 Javadu, I think, was probably my first 100K or the only 100K I ran there.
Okay.
So yeah, it was 2014. 2000, I think it was 2014 that I ran the 50K.
I wasn't there.
16, yeah.
No, but
maybe it was 15, 16. So.
The first time I met you, I remember. So the first event that Unived was ever part of was the Oroville Half Marathon, or the Oroville Marathon Run. And Monica, Amay, and myself, the three of us had gone with, back then it was the Run series, RRUNN.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we were mixing it, and it was at the finish line. And so Amay from our team was manning that, and Monica and I were running our first trail half marathon. We're running, and then I get a biker coming by me. And you've heard this story before, so I see the smile. I know you've heard it, but everyone else who's watching. So I'm running my first ever trail half marathon, and there's maybe 2 or 3 people, in front of me, behind me, and then all of a sudden a biker zips by saying, "Make way, make way, make way." So we're waiting, and we're kind of stand on the side and see who's coming, and this guy just comes barefoot, no noise. It's like you don't even hear his feet hitting, and he's just gliding by, and there was Ramesh, of course. So that's the first time I saw you. And I kept thinking, like, what is this guy running on the trails without shoes? But I guess that was it's not a technical trail, to be fair. It's a pretty runnable, soft mud trail. But talking about shoes, today all of us, we emphasize, or we dig in so much about stack height and heel to toe drop, zero drop shoes, wide angle shoes, so on and so forth. Which is the first shoe you ever ran in? Do you recall?
I ran, I think, in a, it might have been an A6, but I think it was just something that I bought with absolutely no gait analysis or anything of that sort. I ran with it, and it was actually my then boss who sort of introduced me to running, because he had run a few marathons before me, and he wanted some kind of company for his run, so he pushed me to run with him, and I ran in those shoes. Those were like completely worn out, a pair of just complete crap. And he looked at them and said, this is the wrong thing for you to do. Come, let's go to the running store. And of course, I bought those shoes from some superstore. I mean, I didn't know that you had to go to specialty stores to get shoes. Not that I endorse it anymore, but back then, of course. And so my boss took me to a running store. This was back in the US, of course, and had me go through the whole gait analysis motion and get me a pair of neutral cushioning shoes. And that was, again, incidentally, an A6. It was an A6 Nimbus, I believe, one of the old series, maybe Nimbus 7 or Nimbus 6 or one of those. So I ran in those for a while, and then I had a bunch of other shoes like an Adidas Supernova and Mizuno. I mean, I actually liked some of those brands and some of those ones. But then what they do is, I mean, the weird thing about the running shoes, even if you are a short runner, the weird thing about the running shoes is even if you have you are a brand loyal guy and you actually like one particular model, they come up with something the next year, they upgrade it technically
Right.
the next year. That completely just changes the whole feel of it, and
Yeah.
and that happens quite so often. So anyway, so yeah, that was my first pair of shoes. So.
And I'm assuming that they didn't work out so well because
Yeah.
now you use no shoes. So
Well,
what made you switch over to barefoot running?
it's a very interesting question. I mean, people ask me like I've been asked that question like, so why barefoot? The fact is, I did not have any terrible injuries or terrible experience with shoes to say, I chose barefoot because of this. But then when I'm asked why barefoot, I ask them back a question: why not barefoot? Because I'm like, the question really should be why shoes? Because to me it's like when I started running barefoot as an experiment, the first time I think in 2010, early 2000 or late 2010 when I started running barefoot, um, it was just out of curiosity and just wanted to have a change in my training or something out of boredom maybe, that I started doing that, and I started liking it. As simple as that. In fact, it initially you do get some problems. I mean, you do get severe pains on your calves, but then sometimes you get blisters. Sometimes you get what I call road hazards in your under your feet, like
Yeah.
whatever it is. I mean, in Indian roads, whatever you can find, you can get on your feet. So all that does happen. But then I started feeling that um, I used to get these slight nicks and aches on my knees or hips. I mean, nothing serious, but still I could feel them. I could feel if I push my training a little bit, maybe I went to maybe another 10 miles a week, I did used to get some of those aches on my joints, which I found that I'm not getting them anymore. I mean, if I push my distance a little longer, I did a 20K, I come back, I don't feel anything on my lower body. Of course, my muscles ache, but that I took it as a good thing, and I did not have a problem at all with that. And but my joints were perfectly fine, and that was the reason why I started experimenting more on that, and started doing it more religiously and more regularly. And rest is
So
history, I guess.
Yeah.
so you were not inspired by a lot of people when they start barefoot running is that they're inspired after they read Born to Run and hear about the Native American Indians in Mexico, and they kind of want to emulate that. So I was just kind of curious to know whether there was some inspiration from somewhere, or if it was just more of, like you said, it was an experiment, something that you just wanted to try.
Yeah, in fact, I read Born to Run about 3 or 4 years after I started running barefoot. So yeah, that's when I read it.
And so, I mean, since 2010, are all your runs barefoot, or do you do
No, I
any?
wouldn't say that. No, majority of them are, but I change to some kind of minimalist or whatever shoes, Vibrams or sandals or something on for certain races where I don't know the course at all, and some trails as well, or most trails, I should say, because you don't know what is in store on a regular trail or a technical trail, and some courses that I don't know. I mean, mostly like racing courses. that are unknown to me. Like, Mumbai, I know that I can run barefoot. Most of the urban races are okay. But if I go to some remote, like I ran one in Salem, one marathon in Salem, and I didn't want to take a chance, and thankfully I didn't take a chance there. I ran in Vibrams because they had patches where there was practically no road at all. So such things happen. So in those situations, races and trails are typically when I try to be cautious about.
So, and when you do wear something, what do you usually wear?
I have Vibrams, of course.
Yeah.
I have a pair of Vibrams, and I also have a pair of Luna sandals,
Yeah.
which I'm not too comfortable with. I can run short distances. I don't like them when I do longer distances, because for some weird reason it gives me blisters near my under my big toe. I don't know why, but it's so
Yeah.
weird. But I just found out that a lot of others have the same problem. But
Okay.
yeah, that's that's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
do have some other shoes. I do have some other shoes that I do use, like trail. I think it's a New Balance trail shoe that I have, that I use when I go on trails. So I don't do as many trails as much as I would like to, but yeah.
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 Cool. So forget the shoes now. We've gone past the shoes. We're done with Asics. Was it Nimbus?
Yeah.
We've come down to Vibrams and Lunas are no good, so they give blisters. So now we're down to nothing. For someone who's been running, say, for a couple of years, because I'm sure there's people in the audience who want to know this. So someone who's been running a couple of years, a decent economy, they wear shoes, they've been toying with the idea of going barefoot. What would you recommend based on your experience? How do you sort of drip it into your training? Do you do one run a week and then build it up to 2 or 3 runs? That's one question. Another is, what do you do in terms of ankle strength? Are there specific exercises that people can do to strengthen the ankle? Because of course, without a sole, without a shoe, there's a lot greater impact on the underfoot, on the ankle. I'm assuming, of course, on the calf and the shin, and all the way up to the hip. So, if you can share some pointers.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to start with a disclaimer. 2 disclaimers. One is that I'm not an expert. I can share my experience and the experience of people who have shared their experiences with me. And I can, that's the first disclaimer. Second disclaimer is that I don't think barefoot running is for everybody. I'm not an evangelist of barefoot running. It may or may not work for you. But having said that, I think everybody should try it once, because it's something that you could find out whether it works for you only if you try it. So to answer your question about somebody who has a couple of years experience running, I mean, it doesn't matter really what running experience you have. You can start day 1 barefoot, but basically I would say yes, start maybe 1 run a week, of maybe initially about maybe a kilometer or 2 max, like a mile or 2 kilometers. Go barefoot, and what you can do is probably like towards the end of your regular run, if you come back to your starting spot or something, just leave your shoes out and go for another stroll in the final k or 2 kilometers, and that you can probably increase on a regular basis and see if you can move it up. Just the same standard rule in running, the 10% rule. You just go up maybe initially, of course, 10% of 2 kilometers is 2.2, but you can do 3 maybe. So go up like that, and you can definitely see it working or not working by about 5 kilometers. Because if it does give you, I mean, now blisters or calf pain, those are not problems. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, those, I mean, especially blisters, I call them battle scars, because that only means that you're about to strengthen your feet, and the calf pain only means that you're about to strengthen your calves. So
Yeah.
because you will get those calf pains initially, because your landing is different. I mean, you're definitely distributing your body weight differently, and you're actually impacting your calves a lot more. But then that is actually the good thing about barefoot running. If you're getting those calf pains after you run a 2K or a 3K, that's probably okay. I mean, take it, do your regular stretches, and if it really hurts, I mean, do some icing. But you shouldn't have to, because it shouldn't be that bad to get through those initial kilometers. But then, if you actually start getting any serious aches on your Achilles or your knees, then you're probably not the barefoot kind of runner, because I think what could happen is it could create, I mean, if you prolong the barefoot running for you, like in those conditions, it could have bigger problems like Achilles tendonitis or plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis by in itself can be fixed through barefoot running, by the way. I mean, that is what most people say. But if it actually got developed as a result of barefoot running, you're probably better off just taking a seat back on that. But Achilles pains are a problem. I mean, Achilles impact is a problem for barefoot running. If you're actually impacted by that, you're probably better off, taking a few days off, put your shoes back on, and maybe ice it until the pain goes away, and then go back to short running, because you're probably not a barefoot runner. But then, having said that, again, I mean, you could probably do it slowly again, build it up, because what you need is more calf strength and more calf flexibility. So you work on those first. I mean, you work on your stretches, you work on your strengthening, and you do your calf races, you do your push the wall or the staircase stretch, or whichever is comfortable for you. One interesting workout that we found out in Soles is the downward dog pose in yoga. That's an extremely good pose or asana for your calves, because it seems to stretch your calves better than the push the wall stretch, providing you the support you need. So if you have an Achilles pain or a plantar fasciitis kind of pain, then you're better off doing some stretch that actually supports your foot, so that something like downward dog is one of the best for that. So that is the first part of your question. So what was the second part again? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, the second part was just, are there specific, ankle strengthening exercises that,
Yeah. So technically speaking, now I want to say, now as far as the hardcore experts are concerned, they say that the chances of your ankles or your joints getting any aches are less if you are a barefoot runner, because you are it's almost like this. When you're wearing shoes, assuming this is your heel, you're probably going to land on your heel most likely when you're running in shoes, because you have so much cushioning under your feet. But if you're a barefoot runner or a minimalist runner, the chances are, and again, the chances are, I'm not saying everybody does, but you are probably going to land like that and distribute your body weight a little. So your joints are probably going to be saved a little more with barefoot running if you are a midfoot striker. If you are not, and if you are a compulsive heel striker, that's when barefoot running is probably not something for you yet. I mean, you probably want to grow into more of a midfoot strike before you actually try extensive barefoot running. You might have to experiment with it a little bit, try out a little bit, and see if it improves. I know one of our members, one of our Soles members, even had his flat foot sort of fixed, I should say. I don't know if it's fair to say it was fixed, but he started getting an arch after about a year of barefoot running. I don't even know if it is, if it's anatomically possible, but apparently he swears by it. So, yeah, I mean, there are things that are great about it. Now, again, as I said, it's not for everyone, but it may not be for everyone. But don't knock it unless you try it once. So that's all what I would say. So again, coming back to the specific workouts for your joints, I would say, any problems on your ankles or any weakness on your ankles, they say originate from your hips. So workouts are, again, everything is about hips and glutes. You do your squats, your lunges, your kettlebell swings, or whatever that strengthens your hips and glutes, and that is basically what will strengthen or effectively strengthen your ankles and knees as well. So your joints actually get help through the largest muscles on your body, which are on your hips and glutes. So that's what you got to do.
You're not doing anything out of the ordinary in terms of strengthening compared to someone who runs. It's the same routine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You have.
Yeah.
I had a question. Since you're talking about how people should ease into barefoot running and give it a try, and because you will experience probably a lot more calf pain, and so it won't allow you to all of a sudden just go out for a 21K or a 42K. How long did it take you to run your first full marathon barefoot?
Good question. I started running, I think, late 2009. I mean, I started running barefoot. I think probably December or so, 2009. But I ran a marathon in the following January 2010. But no, I did not do it barefoot. I ran it in Vibrams. So it took me until I believe it was the Hyderabad marathon that year. So that was the following August. So it took me about 8-9 months before I ran my first marathon. I don't think there's any rule like that, but just that I took my time to do that. So yeah, it took me about 9 months to get to my first barefoot baby, literally.
Wow. Yeah, but I'd say that's still pretty quick, right? 9 months is not a long time if you talk about transitioning from shoes to running only barefoot and then running a full marathon barefoot.
Well, it is. I mean, in fact, when you think about it, I mean, as you go by this 10% rule, in about 2-3 months, I mean, you can probably run exclusively barefoot. I mean, you can. It won't take you much longer than that. Running. I run these days. I run an average of 50 to 60 miles a week. So I mean, probably close to 80 to 100K, and I run all of it barefoot. And I started doing that back then itself. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. If I followed that routine of scaling it up to that level, if I just jumped into that, yeah, I mean, I would have had big time problems.
Cool. And did you ever think about quitting barefoot running? Like, was there a time when you were, in your initial phases of barefoot running where you were like, I don't think this is for me, I have too much pain? Or was it just sort of an easy thing for you that your body just assimilated it really well?
I would say I'm pretty lucky in that it was love at first feet. And
okay.
And it was it just kept getting better. I haven't had any instance where I thought I should stop this. Of course, sometimes when you run and in a really rough course, you run bare feet and you feel this is I definitely need something under my feet. I mean, I curse myself for choosing to do that. But that's not about barefoot running. That's just that day's running of that particular course. So yeah, I mean, there have been instances where I ran barefoot where there's gravel on the road and I have to just literally step on every single sharp rock, and just go through those pains. But yeah, those days I do curse myself. But then that's not about barefoot running.
You spoke about Hyderabad being your first sort of full marathon barefoot. You've qualified for Boston 6 times. Did you qualify running a barefoot marathon?
Oh yeah. In fact, my personal best is on a barefoot. Was a barefoot race.
Okay.
It was Dubai. It was run barefoot. So I ran Berlin last year. Like in India, most of the races I run, especially the urban races, as I said earlier, almost all of them are barefoot. And I ran Berlin in 2018, sorry, and I ran that barefoot. And it was, although it took me that long, it took me a while to get the courage to run barefoot in Boston itself. It was in 2016 finally that I ran barefoot in Boston, because primarily because running, especially in the US, barefoot during the spring and fall season, it's very unpredictable, because first of all, the weather is unpredictable. The real problem is, to me at least, the real problem is cold. If it's really severely cold, it's really hard for me to run barefoot. Heat doesn't seem to bother me as much, but cold definitely does. So sometimes you can't even feel your feet, because they're like almost frozen as they keep repeating on the ground. So, but yeah, in 2016 I ran Boston barefoot, so that was my.
That's actually a follow-up question for me. How many times have you run Boston barefoot?
That was the only time I ran barefoot, because the next time I ran it was in 2018, and 2018 was, I don't know if you have been following the weather in Boston during Boston Marathon, because it was a race from hell. If I did not want to start, I wanted to quit from the starting gun. Wow. It was such a bad race. It was hailstorm and I don't know, 50 miles per hour winds, or some ridiculous stuff, like it had freezing rain, and you couldn't. I couldn't even. I don't think people could run in shoes. Forget. Like snowshoes even. It was that bad. So I had to pull out my Vibrams to run there. It was not easy either, but at least I had to have some covering under my feet. So I did that. So interestingly, the year before 2016 that I ran was 2013. That was again another ominous year for Boston. That was the year of the bomb blast. So I had finished, and I was walking to the train station. That's when the bomb went off. So it was an experience of its own, running Boston that way. So
we're going to get to questions in the chat room. So people who are watching, if you guys have any questions on barefoot running or any other questions just in general around running or one of the races that the Soles organized for Ramesh, please do put them in now. But before I get to that, I have one question for you, Ramesh. You mentioned that you run about 50 to 60 miles a week. Is that your typical training volume? And then do you take any rest days? Are you running 7 days a week? Can you just give us an insight?
Yeah, well, I have experimented with all sorts of training methods, and unfortunately, I'm not a slave to a training plan. That is probably why I'm not getting to the targets I want, because I'm not very. I guess I'm not very disciplined when it comes to running with a training plan, and with all the other workouts that are required for a proper training. But having said that, I've experimented with high mileage training, Fitzinger 70 training, where you work up to like 70 miles a week. But that, well, I can say it worked because I got sort of a PB at that time. And then I experimented with the Hanson's training plan, where your longest run is only about, for a marathon, the longest run is only about 26K, it's about 16 miles. That's the longest run that you run. And, I should say that worked out as well for me because I got a PB with that as well. Then as I got older, I started running on the Run Less, Run Fast program, where you run 3 days a week, but each one of those runs is a quality run. I mean, you don't have any junk miles. You literally run, a speed work, a tempo, and a long run. That's about it. And but the other days, I mean, what you do on the other days matters, which is where I faltered, because you have to properly follow these up with enough strength training and cross training and whatnot. And I was not too disciplined on that. So it did get me close to a PB, but it didn't quite get me the PB I wanted. But anyway, so bottom line is, all of these plans work. It's just that what is convenient for you, and what is it that you're prepared to really follow that matters. Because the only plan, I mean, out of these famous plans, I think the one I keep bouncing that off with our Soles friends. The only plan that I don't think I can follow is the Maffetone, the HR training plan. Primarily because of the diet problems, because it requires you to follow a strict or mostly like high fat or low carb diet, which with our sort of vegan lifestyle, it's kind of hard to do with what's available in India.
It's unnecessary as well. Carbohydrate.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perspective. I mean, each one. I mean, there are people who swear by it. I mean, there are people who believe it, beyond anything. And the point is, I think, I personally feel that it's probably not the diet or the HR training. It's actually the fact that you are training with a discipline that actually makes you a better runner. I mean, any plan works for you. I mean, any plan works because it's been proven with others who have followed those plans. It's just that as an individual, you have to follow it. I mean, you have to follow it to a T. I mean, if there are workouts prescribed for particular days, you have to follow them. You have to do them, and then you will succeed. So,
yeah. Okay. So, I mean,
so yeah, to answer your point, I mean, I'm sorry. One more quick answer to your question. These days I run. I mean, because I seem to like running more. So these days I've gone back to my 6 days a week run and 1 day break. So yeah, that's basically what I found.
Yeah. All right, let's get some questions in from people who are watching. First up is Eldo. He says, do barefoot runners miss the boost during the race? And then he has a follow-up sentence on that, while others who benefit from carbon plates inside their shoes. Interesting.
Again, quick answer is I am not qualified enough to answer that question, because I have not used these shoes, and I don't know. I'm sure people swear by it that these actually do give the performance boost, but bottom line is, if you're not trained to run, I mean, Eliud Kipchoge broke 2 hours with these shoes, sure enough. But if he was not aerobically capable of running that distance at that pace, he wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean, regardless of what other gadgets he had, he wouldn't have been able to do that. So, sure enough, it probably does give you a boost, but I don't think it is the solution that you want to go with, right? I mean, ideally, yeah, if you are a slave to your PB and that is the only guiding principle in your life, yeah, maybe then get the boost from whatever source you can get, shoes or even nutrition. I mean, I know I'm talking to the choir here, but whatever it is that gives you that additional boost, yeah, go for it. It's just that, uh, is it cheating? I mean, it is a fair question to ask, because given a race day essentials for an average runner, everything else being equal, is this an undue advantage for people who are actually wearing these shoes? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something for experts to debate and decide, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is certainly this notion that it's an unfair advantage. Nike came out with it, and now ASICS has launched their version with a carbon plate. Saucony has launched their version now with a carbon plate. So it seems like all the other brands are coming out with shoes with carbon plates in them. Will that be the new norm? Will every full marathoner, half marathoner line up on the roads and races with shoes which have carbon plates? Who knows? I guess if you're a slave to your PB, if you want an unfair advantage, if you want every trick in the book to gain a few seconds, then maybe. Yeah.
I mean, the key point is, just to add to that, the key point is whether if somebody has actually done the math on it, and they see that okay, it gives you an advantage of a few seconds over a 42-kilometer run, that might be good for someone like a Kipchoge, but does it matter for us? I mean, does it matter for the mere mortals like us? I don't think so. But that's again up to an individual.
Yeah. Cool. This is interesting. Do international marathons allow barefoot running?
Well, there may be some races that don't. Out of the ones that I've run, no one has any restriction on barefoot running. I know that triathlons restrict you. I mean, many of the Ironmans and stuff, you can't run barefoot, because apparently you are supposed to run with Vibrams and stuff. But I don't plan on doing any triathlons. But the fact is, none of the events I've participated internationally have had any restrictions on barefoot running at all. Now, I've not run special races, like I'm sure like a marathon in Antarctica would probably restrict you. I mean, from barefoot running, but there may be other reasons for other races as well. I mean, maybe some trails, or maybe some other races that may have some other reasons. But generally speaking, no. I mean, most of the famous ones that we know of don't have any restrictions like that.
Okay. Kanan is here. He says, hello, how much do you attribute your marathon time performance to barefoot versus assume you always wore shoes? Okay, so I guess another way of phrasing this is, would you say your marathon success is because you're running barefoot?
I would put it, I would say yes, but probably not the kind of answer that Coach K is looking for. As in, I think it does help, or it has helped me by keeping me injury free. So that has actually helped me train through the training cycle to get me the performance I needed. So that is how barefoot running is happening.
That's great. That's a very confident, experience, evidence-based statement that you've just made, that it has kept you injury free. I don't know of a lot of runners who can say, oh, I've always been running in ASICS, or I've always been running in New Balance, and therefore I've been injury free. They don't attribute being injury free to using a specific brand of shoes or a specific stack height or whatever. They always say, oh, I've been really lucky that I've been injury free. I'm blessed I haven't been injured. Or they say, oh, I've been doing strength work, and so I've sort of managed it. But here's a very good firm statement. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah. So I mean, one point that I need to add to it is, when you run in shoes versus when you run barefoot or even minimalist, is that you tend to be a little more cautious. That's what I've seen, especially when you run barefoot. You become a lot more conscious about where you land and how you run, and it's subconsciously that you become that way, subconsciously conscious. But the advantage of that is you actually tend to protect your feet no matter what, which actually indirectly seems to strengthen your calves, strengthen your muscles in general, and that because it puts more pressure on your muscles than on your joints. So that actually helps you. Again, like I said, it's not for everyone. I'm not preaching. I'm not being an evangelist here. I'm just saying anecdotally from my experience, that's been the case. So
Fair enough.
Amit is here. I think Amit is also a barefoot runner. Amit, just comment and let me know if I'm correct on that. He says, in the era of carbon fiber plates, is there any possibility of okay, so say a barefoot runner and one of the carbon shoes, going head to head. What do you think?
Oh well, that's a tough.
It's tough.
It's obviously tough because first of all, you have to be running at those levels, right? I mean, you have to be. I mean, if you're comparing, a 4-hour marathoner, 4-hour barefoot versus 4-hour short runner, and you're putting them head to head, yeah, maybe you can see the difference, but that's still amateur running. If you want an elite level runner, I mean, first of all, I don't know if there are any elite barefoot runners anymore, even though most of them would prefer to be, because like if you ask Kipchoge if you want to, or a Bekele, if they want to go out, nobody is watching them, and they want to just go out to their village and run. I'm pretty sure they'll run barefoot because that's how they grew up. So that upbringing is what made them these strong runners that they are now. So, but then again, they have endorsements to answer to, and all the international eyes of the big business of running, looking at them all the time. I mean, spying on them all the time. So they cannot be seen running barefoot, I'm pretty sure. So because of that, I don't think they're trained enough in barefoot running anymore. So I don't think many of these elite runners will be able to do it. That's the issue that I have, or I see being a problem, a practical issue in doing this. But yeah, I mean, there may be a day when we can compare them head to head. But then again, I mean, does it matter? I mean, does it? My question is why? I mean, in fact, the same thing you asked me, like about why barefoot, was a question that was asked to me when I was running. I mean, last October I was running the Marine Corps Marathon in DC, one of my favorite races, by the way. It was raining, and it was so all these people were just covering up their shoes in plastic bags and whatnot to protect them from rain. And here I was, running like a kid, splashing water all over. And so this guy just asked me, like, what happened to your shoes? And I said, they just got wet, so I threw them out. And then another guy was like pointing at my feet and asking me why. And I asked back at him the same question, pointing at his shoes. So I mean, that's basically the answer to it. Like, if it works for you, go ahead and do it. If it doesn't, don't. But being an evangelist doesn't help anyone. I mean, I mean, if it to say this is the right way to do it needs a lot more research, right? I mean, a lot more people. I mean, that's something that I keep telling my Soles friends as well. If there is a study on barefoot running that spans over years and miles and stuff, I could be a subject. I'm more than happy to participate in that study. With I've run so many years, so many miles of barefoot, and I can definitely contribute to that study, I think, and as an experience from my own. That's a long answer to that nice little short question.
Yeah, no, I think what will be really interesting is if a race has, the way you have age category, if you had barefoot and, with shoe categories, I think then it would get interesting. Then it would, allow barefoot runners to compete with barefoot runners, and people, maybe elite runners who are really fast and who want to win or who are capable of getting on podiums, may not want to be forced sort of to wear shoes, and they can. I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not debating the fact that some of these shoes, some of these technology advancements definitely make people faster, no doubt. I mean, to answer that particular question, if you go head to head with given the same caliber between two runners, I'm sure the runner with the shoes will win than the barefoot runner.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, with that,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah. I'm just screening. There's a bunch of more questions. I'm just screening. Here's maybe just a quick answer. Do you think there's any precaution during COVID running barefoot? Just a quick answer there.
Yeah, good question. It is there is a concern that you can get infections through your feet. It is a valid concern, and I think if you are a regular barefoot runner, the chances are that you're probably okay, because you're not going to get. I mean, your feet are probably calloused and hardened enough that you won't get you won't get any direct injuries. But other than that, the one thing that I do is as soon as I get back, I wash my feet, and I make sure that I don't touch my feet or get any way of getting any external particles from my feet get to anywhere else on my body. But yeah, I mean, if you do get an injury, as in like a cut or something, it is a concern. I mean, it can be a concern. But then again, it is a problem. As far as I know, the virus has minimal lifespan, and the chances of it actually staying on the ground alive and active are, I think, less, because by the time they've hit the ground, they're probably not so active. They've probably been lying there for a while, for a few hours, and the chances are that you won't get that. But then that's a chance. That's literally a chance, and we don't want that chance. So yeah, I mean, ideally, if you get a cut or something of that sort, I would say you should probably stop and immediately get to some place where you can wash it off. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing as running with shoes. You get home and you have to either wash the shoes or leave them out in the balcony, or we wear masks and we sanitize our hands. But how often do we think, hey, we're stepping out to buy vegetables? What about our hair? Do we have to come back and shampoo our hair? You can get as deep as you want.
The newspaper or the milk packets that are lying outside your house. Those are all. I mean, for you guys, no, not for the vegan guys. I'm just.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions on how one should get into barefoot running. I think we've gone over that. Let me see. Here's one from Rajesh. He says, one thing that holds us back to try barefoot running on the roads is the possibility of getting injured by sharp objects. It's that fear. How do we overcome the mental barrier?
Well, I can tell you, like, even now there are days when I do get a broken glass or a little rock or a splinter in under my foot. It's just that initially it's a lot more frequent. Obviously, when your feet are much softer or much less calloused. But the fact is, I want to ask you, Rajesh, back that question. When we were little, when we were playing cricket in our school days, we did not have shoes. We had maybe some, slippers that we just threw on the side. When you had to come to bowl, you just run in and bowl. And, you don't wear shoes. And the fact is, we lose that ability at some point, not physically, really. It's just the mental strength that we lose. I mean, it's not even a strength. We actually acquire a weakness, I should say. It's not that we lose our strength, we acquire a weakness. We bring it on to ourselves, that this fear that, there is, as I call them, road hazards that can actually get you. The fact is, it's not that bad. I mean, you do get, once in a while, you do get a piece of broken glass under your feet, but it's nothing serious. You can, nothing that a safety pin cannot get out from your foot. Again, just like everything else in running, what you do mentally is nothing other than just do it and see what happens. Everything in running is like that. I mean, did you ever think that you would run a marathon the day you started running the first kilometer, Rajesh? I should ask you that question back. I'm sure you did not. I mean, you never thought that you would run a marathon when you started running. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah, and now we have an extra use for the safety pins, not just to tie the bibs. There's another way to use the safety pins if required. But it's interesting. You acquire a weakness. As children, all of us have played barefoot on the roads, in gardens or in mud gardens. The red mud gardens. There's no grass; it's just red mud. We never knew that we could get injured. It wasn't a condition that we thought we could have. Now that we've read so many books and we've heard so many stories and we've gone through so many things, we know it's a condition. If I leave my house for a run without shoes, I may have this condition where I may step on something, or I may get injured, or whatever it may be. So it's part of conditioning. It's one of the reasons why we run, to get deconditioned, to sort of unlearn, to sort of let go of the schooling and come back to where we started. I don't know if I went on, but
no, but it is a very good point, because chi running's basic principle is you run like a kid. I mean, we start running as when we are kids, when we run, we have no bother. We have no bother about getting injured, falling, or getting getting any sort of children don't get any injuries, right? I mean, we don't get any knee pain or hip pain or ankle pain as kids. But then that happens as we get older, and that is because we lose the ability to run as a child. I mean, run like a child, which is, I mean, chi running's principle is you don't fight the gravity, you run with the gravity. You use gravity to run. You run as if you're about to fall. And that is how children run. I mean, they don't use their arms and legs, they use their core. And that's how they run, and that is what you need to do to basically run injury free. And it's the same principle here too, right? I mean, when you run as a child, you run without any bother. When you grow older, you start worrying about a lot of things, and that actually brings in a lot more injuries along with it.
Not only physical but mental injuries as well.
I think it's about being mindful. I think I certainly have a fear of stepping on things, and it's not that there are rocks, but I mean I think you have to be mindful of your environment. There are places maybe that you don't want to run because you might step on like a drug addict's needle. I mean, those are things that happen. So you just have to be mindful of your environment and be aware of where you're running. And I think that's
absolutely.
Injury can happen to anyone. How many people do we know who are injured? And none of them are barefoot runners. They all wear shoes, and they still get injured. So
I mean, the other thing is, I'm sorry to extend one more point to Monica's point of stepping onto a needle and stuff like that. I mean, those are all potential problems. The fact is, that is what I was saying earlier about you subconsciously become conscious. as you do barefoot running, because you actually are a little more aware of what you step on, and you do maneuver in a way that is better for you as better for your muscles and better for your running, and also to make sure that you don't step on these things. And I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, as I grow more and more, I should say, I don't know if I mature is the right word, but as I do more and more barefoot running, I realize that I am actually more conscious about where I run, and I step on things a lot less hard and a lot more, I would say, cautiously. And it's very interesting that as you keep doing that, it actually helps you build your calf muscles and the rest of your core as well. I mean, because it leaves your limbs to a bare minimum. So
It
it's very interesting.
aligns everything from inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, I think 2 years ago, I dabbled into barefoot running a little bit. What I would do is after I finished my easy run, I'd just stay on the road, take my shoes off, and do maybe 2 or 3K. But I would just do it once a week, and I never did it with the intention of becoming a barefoot runner. I did it with the intention of my thought was try and do maybe 5K a week barefoot, just to remind yourself of how to land, just to activate a few small muscles and tendons here and there, which may not be firing when you're wearing shoes. So
it's a very good recovery tool as well. I mean, short barefoot runs are good recovery tools.
Yeah. Well, wow. What a nice chat. What a nice talk about running and running in India for the last 2 decades, and then starting with Asics Nimbus and then being nimble without shoes. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a very inspiring story. I think many people who are maybe in that fence of should I try it, should I not try it, I think maybe they'll take some inspiration from you and get out and try it and see if it works for them. Like you said, you're not propagating anything, that has worked for you, and maybe it will work for others.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, you guys are doing a fabulous job with this, because I mean, not that I am of any value to that level, but you guys bring in people who do have enough to share to people who are actually looking for answers, a lot of them. And thank you very much for doing this, because this is an excellent way to spend your containment time, I guess, as frustrating as it is.
Yeah, well, no, we should thank you, and we should thank everyone else who's watching and who's joined us. It's nice to connect in a very different way. We're used to seeing each other at races, either on the trail or on the road, or at a pre-race dinner, or something like that. So it's nice to connect, and it's nice to sit back and chat about running and shoes and no shoes and weather and nutrition and so many things. So it's good. But before we get to closing notes, we have a fun quick fire round for you. Just a couple of questions, which we'd request you to sort of just spit out the answer like a PB answer. Yeah. Okay. So Monika's gonna start.
You're a pretty minimalist runner, but what's one thing that you cannot run without?
What's one thing that I cannot run without? I try. Well, one thing these days, since my accident in 2012, one thing that I run with always is the road ID band. So I always run with that. I run. I mean, from a nutrition point of view, though, I run in my training. I run without any nutrition. I mean, in fact, in the hot, humid weather in Cochin, I mean, it's like a PB for me, PB attempt for me each time. I try to make it to like 20 miles without any water, anything. In fact, which is probably not a great thing to do, but I try to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next question is, what's your favorite distance and which course do you like?
My favorite distance definitely is the marathon because it has enough to challenge me, enough for me to push myself, and the mystery or the mystique of the unknown of the marathon is always charming. And what I also like is that I can run a marathon without thinking much. I'm not a thinking runner. I'm not a runner who's smart. So because of that, that is one of the reasons why I don't do many ultras and many primarily trail ultras. I don't do many of those because you have to be a thinking runner to do that. You have to think of your nutrition. You have to think of your lights, your clothes, where to change, and you have to make sure that you don't get lost. I mean, you have to make the cutoff. You have to do this. I cannot. When I run, I'm in a zone. I just run, and unfortunately, that has driven me out of trail running. I did a few, but then until I become smarter, I decided I should stick to roads. And,
Okay. Cool. What's your most memorable race performance with shoes on?
with shoes on, shoes on. I think shoes on was my first Boston qualifier. That was the Disney World Marathon in Florida, in Orlando. Uh, because I ran it. I mean, I ran it when I was still running in shoes. That was early 2009, January 2009 is when I ran it, and it was an even split marathon. My first half and second half were identical, and in terms of timing, and so yeah, I was very happy about that.
And what? Just curious, what time did you finish that run?
It was 309,
309.
3 hours and 9 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. And then what's your most memorable race performance without shoes?
My most memorable race. I mean, my PB was, as I said, on was at was run barefoot, but it was not my memorable race. I shouldn't call it that memorable. Actually, when I ran New York last year, I mean, in 2019, I ran 3 races in 3 marathons in 3 weekends, including Marine Corps, Niagara Falls, and New York. And New York was really memorable that way because that was the last of the 3, and I was pretty much done. And I thought I'll not do well, but surprisingly, I did a negative splitting, beautiful run. I mean, I ran it with no expectations. I had no timing goals or anything. I wanted to run maybe a 3:30. I ended up doing a 3:21. I went out really conservatively, but I really enjoyed the race because I had no time goals. So the crowds, the whole the whole enchilada of New York.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was beautiful.
Okay. And between these two, your most memorable with shoes and most memorable without, which is the one you cherish the most?
New York, no doubt.
New York.
Yeah, but I mean that's given that though. I mean, if you ask me like what is my favorite marathon, it's actually Big Sur. Big Sur is one of my favorite marathons in California.
Just
In general.
the race in general.
Yeah, the race in general.
Yeah. Okay.
Not that I did great in any. I mean, I ran it twice, and I didn't do that great in either one. But it is a beautiful run, and it's a beautiful race. So
Yeah.
I'll have to try that one, maybe.
Yeah,
In
maybe.
California.
you definitely should. I mean, people say there's an urban legend among marathoners that if you were to do just one marathon in your lifetime, that's the one to do it.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everybody thinks about Boston and New York, all these big marathons, that we kind of forget about all these other smaller ones that are, I mean, they're as beautiful probably as the big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I mean, Boston is definitely, up top
Yeah.
in my list as well, because it is, it is a great race. I mean, the fact that people, line up, it's like Thanksgiving for them on a Monday. I mean, even though it's a holiday for Massachusetts, it's a Monday, and they just invite people from all over all their relatives come in. They have barbecues on their backyards. They offer you beer while you're running. I mean, it's the way spectators get involved in that race is something that I've never seen anywhere else, and that's amazing.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
someday we go spectate. I don't think we're good enough to get into it,
Yeah.
but we'll go spectate.
I don't know if
Come on.
You had a question?
No, I think it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. We've extended. We usually do this for an hour, and I'm just looking at the time. It's an hour and a half. So I think that's testament to how. Yeah, it's just testament to how interesting and engaging the conversation has been. Enlightening for sure. Thanks again, Ramesh, for taking the time. Nice to see you. Hopefully things open up, and I know Vagamon is next. So hopefully we come and hopefully the race is on and we get to see you there. But if not, maybe before. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Love to be.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah.
It's
Hopefully some days before that.
Yeah. Great. Have a good evening. And
nice to see you both again. And I hope that banana bread is done.
Oh yeah, you want to go get it out? Okay,
I
so
hope
we'll do that. Let Monica go to the oven and bring it out.
I hope it's
Okay. Meanwhile, if you remember, there was a question from Amit, and I said I think he's a barefoot runner. Earlier, and he did reply. He says, "Yes, I'm a 2:48 barefoot runner." So there you go. Yeah,
there you go. So yeah, maybe he, Amit, you are the one who needs to go head to head against a carbon plate short runner.
Yeah, that should answer some guys who were. And I know you ran. So you ran your PB barefoot, which is of course your fastest marathon, and so there's another. There's another answer right there. I mean, you run your fastest ever race without shoes.
I mean, there are people. I mean, like Bobby, Thomas Bobby Phillip from. I mean, he has run 2:54, I think, or 2:55 or something like that. He runs barefoot, so that's.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is great. 2:48 barefoot. I mean, that's amazing, Amit. I mean, you should probably be part of one of those research studies. Maybe people like Alex Hutchinson will be doing these endurance sports studies, and some of us can participate. I think he'll definitely get a lot of subjects from India, because there's a lot more barefoot runners in India than anywhere else, I think.
Yeah. Well, here's a piece.
There you go.
There it is.
Oh, that looks wonderful.
I'm experimenting. This is actually not my original recipe. I've been experimenting these last few times that I've made the banana bread. So I'm trying to do something with the recipe. I don't know how. I'm still not, by the looks of it, I'm not very happy. So hopefully next time it looks better.
Well, from the looks of it, I'm pretty happy.
I'm really happy because I've been getting a lot of baked stuff every day or every 2 days since the lockdown. Cookies and banana bread, all high protein and good stuff. So, yeah.
I'm also trying some. Some baking experiments. I did bagels for the first time the other day.
Nice.
It was interesting because you have to. It's a little tricky because you have to boil it and then bake it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But yeah, I would probably reach out to you, Monica, for that recipe for that banana.
Most definitely. More than happy to share it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to do this once a week moving forward. So we'll be back next Monday. We'll let you know in a couple of days who we have on. And of course, just subscribe. And that way, you get a little bell that goes off whenever we're planning things. Thanks again, Ramesh. Pleasure to speak with you. It's dinner time, so I'm sure you have dinner planned with the family. I'll let you go. Enjoy your meal while I enjoy some banana bread. We're actually in South Indian for dinner. We're going to make some masala dosas and then some banana breads.
All right.
All right. Okay. Have a good evening.
See you then.
See you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.